With over 400 celebrity interviews and tons of pop culture nerdiness, Too Opinionated is a safe haven for your inner geek. Find us at Meisterkhan.com or on YouTube under Meisterkhan Pod. And please subscribe. It would really help us out. Thanks, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Too Opinionated. So excited today. I've got writer, director Greg Lamberson with me. So welcome, Greg.
Hello, sir. Thank you for having me.
No, it's a real pleasure to have you. I've been a little bit of a fan of yours for a little while, and I know we've got to talk about Guns of Eden, which surprised me that you were coming out with an action movie. I'm used to you with the horror stuff, so pretty great. So let's start this way, Greg. Tell me a little bit about what got you into the entertainment business. You know, what made you want to do what you're doing?
Well, my mother couldn't afford a babysitter, so the babysitter was a TV. And I've loved monsters all my life, from the time I was 3 years old, and the cartoons like Herculoids, shows like that from the 60s. They captured my imagination, and I never let go of them. And after that, I started collecting the Aurora monster model kits.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see the movies that inspired the monsters, and they just stayed with me. Then I started buying movie books that told me how those things were made, and one thing led to another.
I love that you were a Herculoids fan. I was as well growing up. Herculoids and Space Ghost, and there was all kinds of good Hanna-Barbera cartoons.
Back in the day, when there were 3 channels and maybe 2 fuzzy channels if you were lucky. So whatever there was, that's what you watched, and you planned your week around it. People don't realize what it was like to have to get up crack of dawn on a Saturday morning to watch these shows, because they didn't show them during the week and whenever you wanted them.
No, that's right. They started early on Saturday morning, and that was it. If you didn't, there was no cartoons during the week. Kind of the same with, we talk a lot about the primetime shows. If you missed an episode, well, you're out of luck till the summer reruns.
That's right. If you've ever seen a photograph of like barber scissors sticking out of a TV channel because the channel had broken, that almost always happened because of kids changing from one channel to another on a Saturday morning so that they could catch a little bit of this during the commercials.
Yeah.
And go back to that.
Strip the channels.
That's right.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So for me, they used to show the Universal monster movies like Halloween night. They'd show them overnight. So I became a fan that way. That's kind of what got me started into, I guess you would call that horror, although kind of mild compared to today's standards.
Sure. I was deprived of those Universal movies just because, you lived by whatever syndication package your channel got that you were aware of. And I started out with like the really cheap Roger Corman science fiction movies. That was what I was able to see. And then some of the Hammers, but I may not have been, and I may not have seen the Universals until I was in college, even though I was well versed and I knew the history and I had them in all my magazines and books, but it took a long time before I saw those.
Yeah. Yeah, they actually hold up surprisingly well for their age.
The exception being Creature from the Black Lagoon. That one was sort of syndicated separate from the other ones, and I did catch that, and he was my favorite monster growing up.
Yeah. There was a period of time he was mine too. That was a little different than what you normally would get. So when that one was showing in syndication, I jumped all over it.
Yeah.
It's pretty great. Well, so when you went to high school, were you doing theater, or were you involved in anything that way?
No. I mean, when I was in high school, that's basically when Star Wars hit, and I really knew I was going to make films, and I had no interest in stage. It was all film. I wasn't making little Super 8 films with my friends or anything like that, though. I was just, I was very aware that there were these, there was Superman on the big screen, and then there was Superman, which was one of your friends running around in a silly costume, and the kid hadn't hit puberty yet, and I knew the difference, and I didn't want to fall into that other camp.
Yeah, I actually like that. Yeah, so even at a young age, you knew
Yeah.
that there's a big difference in, you know, a film, a feature film, and that just something you would shoot maybe with your buddies.
Right.
Yeah, very good. So the new movie is Guns of Eden, and it just came out this week, right?
Brand new.
Yeah.
Fresh as a baby.
What made you decide to do an action movie over a horror movie?
Well, I'm a big action movie fan, just like I am a horror fan.
Yeah.
Both in terms of movies and novels. I'm a big fan of an author named David Morrell who wrote First Blood. And I wrote the script as sort of a female First Blood way back in the 90s, and it went into a drawer.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Basically because it was really ambitious with the helicopter and all those characters and stuff. Living in New York City, it just wasn't conceivable to me that I would travel someplace with woods and stuff to make this movie on film, which is what I was working in at the time. They didn't have digital technology.
Right.
And I had actually been developing a werewolf movie that I really want to make. But it wasn't practical to shoot a cabin in the woods type movie during the pandemic. Just isn't safe.
Right.
You have the cast in the cabin, you got the crew, you got the special effects,
a lot of
you're
close
all
quarters
on top of each other. It just was not feasible. And I had been sort of tinkering with this old script of mine again. And because 90% of it is outdoors, I knew that if I was going to make a movie during the pandemic, this was the safest one.
Right.
You know?
Well, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because most of the action's outside.
Right. But, you know, I consider even though most of my films have been horror, and I consider myself a horror guy, I like all genres. You know, I like cop movies, I like comedies just like anybody else. And in fact, there's a film on the film festival circuit right now that I wrote. I didn't direct it, called Showdown and Yesteryear, which is a really fun film about a guy from our time who travels back to the Wild West and gets involved in a real Western adventure. And that's sort of a comedy, romance, fantasy. So this is sort of the year that I did two films that were a little outside what people know me for.
We just had Vernon on the show. He was just on a couple days ago.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's, I always thought that I mean, he's so personable and has, you know, so much character that I always thought he'd be good in a Western. So I'm kind of anxious to see that.
Was he, just out of curiosity, was he promoting that movie Frost? Is that what he was
No,
on?
he was on for a new one that hasn't come out yet.
Okay.
But you know, when you talk to him, he's got like 40 projects going.
Yeah. Well, I have not met him. I wasn't on the set for that one, so I don't know him. But you know, I live in that world of Debbie Rochon and Lynn Lowry and Deborah Lamb, and these are all working actors who they just do projects and keep going.
Right.
And
it's amazing how much some of them do in a calendar year. You get a lot of work done.
Yeah, I did look at Vernon's IMDb a little while ago. I don't remember why, and I did see there were like 10 things all, you know, in various stages of post-production and coming out soon.
Yeah.
He's very good. I got to tell you, I wasn't really familiar with him outside the Road Warrior. Right. And I wrote the big boss of the Western town is him, the guy that all the bad guys work for. And he was really good.
Yeah.
It's
cool. I've always been a fan of Vernon's.
It's cool to create a character like that and like a project where I'm not the controlling force and see who they cast and to see like somebody with real credibility saying the dialogue that I wrote. It was cool.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that because I know a lot of your projects, you are kind of handling a lot of hats.
Yeah.
With them. Do you prefer that, or do you prefer to just kind of write it and then let somebody else do the hard stuff?
You know, I want to do my own films, and what's involved in that is me and my wife usually do the work of 4 people during pre-production. And it's just the way to get it done on a low budget is for everybody to do a couple of different things. And, you know, I live with a project for a year and a half. So I'm not going to get tired and go do something else. I know I'm going to get my film done no matter what. That being said, I do like when I'm dead broke and somebody says, hey, I need a script. Can you give me a good price? Writing a script fast is the best way to make some money quickly And it's nice to not have to worry about all the details, and
Yeah.
how you put this thing together.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. It's almost like taking a little break.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty great. So let's talk a little bit about Guns of Eden. So I've watched the trailer. We're holding off on watching the movie. We've got a studio that I'm in now that holds about 20 people, and we're getting all the guys together this weekend. So we're watching.
I like that.
Yeah,
like
we're gonna have a little premiere, and we'll get some pizza and some drinks and stuff. And
yeah, my movies always go down better with beer.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's right. It had a just from the trailer, I thought it had it kind of harkened back to the action movies from the 80s, but with a modern twist.
Yeah, totally. It's, I like 70s films like Deliverance and 80s films like Rambo and all the Rambo ripoffs, more specifically in the canon films. That's exactly what it is. If you like those movies, you're almost sure to like this. And if you've always written those movies off, you're going to write this one off too. But I think it's pretty authentic to that, and I think it's pretty clear that that's what we were going for.
Yeah, yeah, and it jumped out at you right away, and it also, like, just from the little bit I watched, I'm wondering how in the world are they going to get out of that? That's the odds are stacked against them.
They are indeed. And that's
Tell
sort of
the key to
making something like this work, is to keep the threats increasing, so it gets less and less easy for them to get out of it. That's the whole key.
Yeah. Well, you could tell it was looking dire at the end of the trailer. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see it. What what went into the casting? How did you find your lead actors? Is it, I've noticed that you tend to work with some people on different projects. Is this people that you had worked with before, or did you go out and do some casting?
Well, there's 65 speaking roles. I'd say at least half of them are people I've worked with on past projects. We do have a specific troop of people in Buffalo where film production has been increasing over the years. And we have a certain number. Yeah, and I often work on other films, like for Fred Olen Ray or Chris Ray, in a secondary position or a third-area position on those films. And so sometimes my job will be wrangling some of these people if they're extras or have bit parts. So we all mostly know each other. Then there were a few people that came in from out of town, because I did a crowdfunder on this one. I don't always, but on this one I did, mainly because I was nervous about approaching investors at a time when theaters were closed and nobody knew what distribution prospects were.
Right.
I honestly could not go to investors and say, I know you lost money on my last film, but now when the world is in this horrible situation, now is the time to take another chance on me. Right. So we crowdfunded, and a lot of people got perks that included roles, and some of those roles, there's all these, like the Warriors, there's all these different gangs that are out hunting these people in the woods, different factions of this militia. So they all have very distinct personalities. And I was able, when people bought a role, so to speak, I was able to create a character somewhat around them. I left those roles nondescript in the script, knowing that I would put in a little bit of dialogue for these people to clue people into who they were. Then there's the main characters, though, because I would not do that crowdfunding shtick with the main characters. You've got to believe these people. And most of them are people I've worked with before, either on my own films or on other people's. The one big question was who was going to play the female hero.
Right.
Character's name is Megan Forrest. The whole film hinged on having an actress that could pull that character off, who could be physical and could be dramatic. And my wife did the casting with me, and she was the one actually who said, this is the one. Alexandra Facedagian had sent us her resume for a different project and was following up with us exactly when I was looking to cast this role. And instead of putting out a casting ad and getting 1,000 submissions, I had actually asked some filmmaker friends, can you recommend someone? So at the exact same moment that we received a follow-up from her, another friend of mine said, oh, you should look at this person. And it was pretty obvious right away that she was the one. And she's a New York City actress. That's 8 hours from Buffalo. And we really just wanted to make sure that, number one, she was cool with typical indie conditions, which, you know, you don't have a trailer, you don't have a masseuse, you don't have a 5-star hotel. We ended up putting her up with friends. And number two, just because this was a rough picture and there's no stunt double for her, she's got to do a lot of running around and get dirty, and it's going to look glamorous. And I mean, you'll see she does a really good job. And you know, she was down with everything, and it's paying off. I mean, all of the reviews, whether they're good, God bless them, or bad even, they all single out her and are praising her. So I think she's going to get somewhere out of this.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's terrific. I mean, she definitely looks the part. She's kind of a badass looking. Like when you see her, you're like, yeah, I could believe that she could do this stuff.
You need total commitment from your actors, especially when you're doing an action film on such a low budget. Everyone's got double hats. You know, one of the supporting characters, he's sort of a nerdy looking guy with glasses who has to become an action guy too. He was my assistant director. He was doing double duty on this. And my cameraman was sort of an extra. And, you know, just any place that I could get somebody to put in extra work on their days off, that's the way it went.
Any difference in doing an action movie compared to say a horror movie?
Yeah, I mean, number one on this one, I've learned a long time ago working for the Rays, that if you can do a story that's set in one day, so you don't have day shoots and then night shoots and then turnaround time in between, just logistically, there's a lot of things that are easier. And if you do a horror film, you know, you're going to have some nights in there somewhere, or you're not going to work. So that was one thing. Another thing is that action is more about having a whole bunch of elements work at the same time, whereas horror is more about focusing on getting to that payoff, you know, to elicit that fear. People will debate whether or not I've ever succeeded at doing that. But there's just a different mindset when you arrive on set. It really is almost more military, and when you have to do an action film. Every film, the goal, you know what you got to get done that day, and you're racing. You know, it's just problem solving all day long. What compromises do you have to make to get to the end and say you got everything you had to do? And those elements and challenges are multiplied greatly on an action film over a horror film, unless it's a horror film that's really reliant on practical effects.
Right.
That can really slow things down, because, you know, there's this really cool thing on a horror film. If you have, say, a throat slit and you got a practical blood spray, and you keep telling everyone, we've got one shot to get this right, and it doesn't go right.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Well, you're going to spend 40 minutes cleaning up all the blood and reenacting the gag. And that one shot is not going to be one shot. It's going to be 2 shots and maybe even 3 shots. And the next thing you know, you're a couple hours behind on your day.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm assuming you're very conscious of the time. Just because of the budget, you'd almost have to be, because any delay is going to cost you money. And in some cases, I would think it could, if it got bad enough, it could affect actually getting the film made.
Yeah, I mean, we had a 15-day shooting schedule on this, which is kind of typical for low budget films now. It used to be 18 days. 20 days would be a luxury. I really wish I'd had 20 days on this, because there were days when we had to do 2 action scenes in one day. And it would have been nice to just have one action scene, so you could really shoot different angles and not just say, okay, we got it. Okay, let's get it a couple more ways. And so we were done in 15 days no matter what. And, you know, if you have out-of-town talent, they have been committed to a certain amount of time. They know they're going back on this day, and they got a day to rest before they start on their next project. And you just don't have the luxury, unless you're only making a film with all your friends, and those friends don't have jobs, you know, and they have all sorts of free time. Oh yeah, well, we'll just, next Wednesday we'll come back and we'll get the scene that we didn't get. We'll get everybody together and we'll load up the truck again and get all the equipment together, and the city will give us permits, you know, without worrying about if our insurance is lapsed and all that stuff. It'll be easy.
Yeah, it sounds easy. So what's the plot? What's the plot for Guns Beat?
So 4 friends go camping. One of those friends is a policewoman who is on leave because she's been involved in a shooting, which has left her traumatized. At the same time that these four people are off in the woods to get away from it all and just have a relaxing weekend, the local sheriff's department has raided the meth lab of some drug dealers and rather harshly killed all of them. There's not a lot of arresting in Eden County.
Yeah.
They take care of business. And the leader is somebody that they actually march out in the woods and make him dig his own grave. And two of our heroes see this guy get executed. Well, as has to happen, they have to be seen seeing so that the bad guys know they're there, and the chase ensues. And because Eden County is a whole county, it's not called the Sheriff's Department of Eden County. They put out the call for all the local guys in the militia to come to the mountain and help them catch these four people. Because if they get off the mountain, it's an end to their way of life.
Right. Yeah. So they've got some skin in the game trying to catch these people. They're motivated.
And all of that really is just an excuse to get the heroes running around being chased by bad guys with guns. That's where the 80s canon films come in. It's everything's just there so that we have this action setup.
Where did you film at? Did you film there in Buffalo?
Yeah, we filmed in downtown Buffalo for the city scenes, and for the camping, we drove to one park that was only 20 minutes away. That was great because it was so scenic that we just had to turn the camera around and we'd have a whole different look, which saves time. And there's another park almost an hour and a half away that we went to, which you see a little bit of it in the trailer, but the heroes being chased through these sort of rock canyons. Yeah, they're crevices, and it's a rock park that was very isolated. There was no electricity, no bathrooms. Our permits didn't arrive until after we shot there. We got all the way out there, and I called our film commissioner. I said, we never got our permits. He just said, just shoot. We'll worry about it later if there's a problem. We worked really hard to shoot at a few different parks. Like we went to one just to get a waterfall for a quick shot, just because we wanted there to be a scenic look to the film. Yeah. A lot of the times with the low budget films, especially, they're just in one wooded area and it always looks the same. Even if they travel a distance within those woods, it looks like the same damn trees over and over. So we went out of our way to create some different looks for the different sequences.
Yeah, I never would have thought of that. I just assumed you filmed all that in one location.
I was a producer. I was a producer on two micro budget films. One's called Snow Shark, Ancient Snow Beast, and the other's called The Legend of Six Fingers. And these were shot by a friend of mine named Sam Qualiana, sort of a young guy that I helped in his early days. And his family owned 5 acres of woods out in the sticks. And so that's where he shot all his movies. Yeah. And always looks the same. Always looks the same. It's sort of like the Blair Witch.
Somebody's going to catch on.
Yeah. The Blair Witch, when they find out they're still going in circles and stuff, that's what it would feel like shooting his movies on those woods.
So before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you about you did some work on public domain comic book theater.
Oh yeah.
What is that?
Well, I've been doing podcasts like this for quite a few years, and one of them is called Dread Media. It's by a friend of mine named Des Reddick, who's out in Quebec. And he has, you may be the same way. He's part of a community of podcasters, and they kind of go on each other's shows sometimes. And one of those guys is a man named Thomas Deja, who's in New York City. And I kind of marvel at people who are doing 5 different podcasts. Like every day of the week is a different podcast. And one of the ones he does is he does a radio show with a bunch of actors and stuff. And he or one of them, they may take turns, writes a script evocative of the radio serials. And nice. they put them on, and they're legitimately just like that. That's the humor, I guess, is that they're so authentically copying those old shows. And one time, I don't know what I was promoting then, but he said, "Oh, well, while you're here, would you like to come be on this episode we're doing?" So I got to play some sort of character on one of their radio dramas.
Well, that's fun. Yeah, I have to look that up. Yeah. I saw that and I was like, what is that?
This is the first time anyone has ever asked me about that, so I'll be sure to let him know.
Well, I love the fact that a lot of your films are kind of cult classics, which nerdy guys like me, we love. You know, I enjoyed Widow's Point, and I watched Johnny Gruesome, but I have my eyes closed for a bunch of it. I have to admit, but I really enjoyed that. So you know, what's that like when you create something and it gets kind of a loyal fan base?
It's the only thing that keeps me going in this industry because there sure isn't money when you're an indie filmmaker. It's tough. It's brutal. You know, the distribution models are constantly changing, and every time it's a kick in the ass of guys like me. Right now, Walmart has stopped carrying as many DVDs to make room for vinyl records, which are now the biggest form of music. And so, as far as I know, Guns of Eden did not get into Walmart, which was kind of a shock to me because this is the type of film that somebody walks by that cover.
Oh yeah,
the right person, they're going to snap it up. So that was disappointing, but yeah, you know, it's good to have people respond to your work, and believe me, I get it from both ends. I get people who don't get what I do at all. You know, they don't understand there's a certain charm and that we're deliberately going for a feeling with a lot of this stuff. And then there's people who get it. And, you know, I'm one of the people like the people that get it. You know, we could all hang out together and watch the same movies.
Yeah. I mean, these type of movies to me, they're just fun. And that's why we wanted to watch it in a group, because it one reminds us of going to the theater back in the 80s when we were growing up. And two, it's always just more fun when you're in a group and can kind of enjoy it together. And sometimes it gets a little loud, you know, but that's okay because we're enjoying the movie.
Well, this is why I'm glad that you're inviting everybody listening to come to your little theater and watch this.
Come on.
It can be one big group.
We can do standing room only. If we ever get to standing room only status, I'll take some pictures.
Okay. I want to hear how the screening goes anyway.
Oh, yeah, of course. Of course. I'm sure it's going to go great. We've done this half a dozen times or so so far, and we always just have a blast and really excited for this one. Amazingly, this will be our first action movie.
Cool.
Yeah. So this should be a lot
My
of
first action movie, your first action movie in that setting. Wonderful.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So where can we find Guns of Eden? Where can we watch it?
So if you want it on DVD, just order from Amazon or any of the online retailers. And if you rather just stream it, it's only $3.99 to rent on Amazon or $7.99 to buy on digital on Amazon. It's so cheap. It's just like the video store. There's not a chance in hell I'm going to make money on this. So just go out and however you can watch it, that's the way to go.
Yeah. Will we get a sequel?
Listen, I've been thinking about a sequel and what I would like to do with the sequel, and you'll see that I kind of leave the door open for a sequel, but it's going to depend on if the thing makes any money.
Yeah.
You know, and if somebody wants to offer me money to make it as opposed to me crowdfunding, because that's 2 months of begging people for money. It's just
that has to be the worst part about it. It's really kind of like begging people for subscriptions when you're a podcaster.
It's you know, it's gratifying when they respond, and they did in this case. We did quite well. I mean, that was exciting, but still, you know, at a certain point, I've been doing this for a long time. You just wish there was an easier way to get money.
That's right. Well,
but even Martin Scorsese has to go begging, you know, in his
that's right.
realm. So it's just the name of the game.
She is a terrific, I think, action lead. So I could totally see this going on to more films. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I would hope so. But if I don't get to do a sequel to Guns of Eden, I'm sure that Alexandra will be cast in future action films. She really has a chance at making it, I think.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's terrific. Last thing, Greg, before we wrap up, are you on social media? If you are, where can we find you?
I am. I'm on Twitter. I have a couple of different Facebook accounts. One is the personal one that keeps hitting at 5,000 and no one can join, and then it works its way down gradually. Yeah. I also have on Facebook Gregory Lamberson, author and filmmaker. But if you're really just interested in Guns of Eden, it has its own Facebook page. I always do a page for each of my different films.
Yeah. Are you working on any new novels?
Well, one of my crowdfunding perks for Guns of Eden was a novelization of the earlier drafts of the script.
Oh, nice.
So that's what I'm working on now, and we'll see after that. I'm kind of the feeling that I should keep concentrating on films while I'm young enough to do it, and I can always write more novels once the back is.
Yeah,
that can't do the 12-hour days anymore, and but who knows? The industry could drive me back to novels sooner than I expect. You never know in this
I think of this one and some of your other movies would make good graphic novels.
Well, I wish a graphic novel company would come to me and make that offer.
Well,
the last thing I would want to do would be to self-fund, and go out and do another crowdfunding campaign to do the
that was one more. Well, I put it out there, so maybe they'll. I'm a comic book guy, so
you do that. I love comics too.
Yeah, that'd be good. Some of those I think would.
I have a zombie novella.
Ooh.
I have a zombie novella called Carnage Road that's about bikers versus zombies, and I had an artist once. I said, why don't we do 2 or 3 pages and we'll submit it to comic companies and see if somebody will go for it. And he got really into it, and he did like 13 awesome pages. Like, he just kept going. I was like, wow, I'm not paying him. And then all of a sudden he was like, I'm done. I can't do the comic. And he just dropped out of doing Monster Magazine covers and everything. So I think I broke him. I didn't mean to. He just loved the project so much that he went a little overboard. It wasn't even me.
Well, artists, and I'm married to one, so I can say that they can be a little flaky at times.
That's what my wife says.
Well, Greg, thank you so much. You have to come back for the next one.
I would like to. I had a good time.
Well, I'm glad.
I feel we're there, as my wife would say.
That's right. All right, sir. Hold on one second. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Writer, director, Greg Lamberson. Big fan of his, and I'm sure you've seen some of his movies, because every time he makes a movie, it becomes a cult classic. But he did Johnny Gruesome, Killer Rack, Widow's Point. He talked a little bit about the Western Showdown and Yesteryear, which sounds awesome. So it's someone from the present going back to Western times. I love that idea, kind of Connecticut Yankee type idea. Love it. Guns of Eden is out now. Give it your support. Let's support these guys that are out there trying to make quality movies on a budget. That is not easy. Let's definitely support that. The star, Alexandra, is coming on the show as well. So if you're watching this interview, make sure you check out her interview as well and check out the movie. Thank you guys so much. Hope you enjoyed that. If this is your first time listening to us or watching us, you can help us by subscribing, and it's free. If you're watching YouTube, Meisterkhan Pod, please subscribe. If you're listening just wherever you're listening to your podcast from, please subscribe. That would really help us out. We appreciate that so much. You can find, I posted episode 492 today. You can find all of those on our website, Meisterkhan.com. It'll have the audio and the video, and it'll let you know if we're doing something in studio. If we're watching Guns of Eden in studio, that'll be on the website. If we're going on location, if we're covering a convention, anything we have going on will be on the website, Meisterkhan.com. So please check that out and support us. Thank you guys so much. Bye, everybody.